Welcome back and welcome to our media panel. Good morning to Bill Ralston, listener columnist, and media commentator Brian Edwards. Welcome along to you both. Also, we're joined this morning by blogger Keith Ing, who you may remember broke one of the biggest stories, the biggest story, I think, of the week. Hi, Keith. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
I suspect it's been quite a busy week with you after this story.
It has. So I haven't actually done this many TV interviews before.
Keith, it's Bill Ralston here. Do you actually believe Ira Bailey's story that he just sort of walked in there off the street and somehow logged into the computer and discovered this, or do you? I mean, there's a lot of suspicion about it.
There's a lot of suspicion coming from whale oil, and I really don't take that very seriously. But yeah, it's a very easy thing to find that you just poke around for a couple of minutes and. This sort of thing happens all the time. I had a reader write in about how he does IT at schools, and this is exactly the sort of thing that happens. You have an insecure computer, someone has a little bit of time to kill, and 20 minutes later, you've got a security breach.
Yeah.
So let's just clarify what happened here. You went into WINS and you accessed these kiosks whereby people can apply for jobs and can post their CVs, and what did you essentially find in some of those folders that you opened?
So one of the biggest things that we found was a server full of invoices. Now, normally you think invoices are pretty boring, and most of them were just invoices for milk and sausage rolls and car cleaning. But amongst them were invoices that contained a lot of very sensitive information, such as the names of children in SIF's care, the kind of medications that they were on, legal invoices from lawyers talking about cases, names of people that they were being investigated for fraud, a whole bunch of stuff that were far beyond just financial information.
I guess what amazes me most about the MSD's stupidity here, Keith, is the fact that they actually had USB ports on the side of that computer so people could stick a USB in there. That's just crazy, because you can download whatever you want onto it.
Interesting about the legality of this exercise as well here, because the Minister has said that you won't be prosecuted, but she hasn't said that Ira Bailey won't be prosecuted. What's your view on that?
Well, I think that's mostly just posturing. I mean, we were both in the same legal position in the sense that we both accessed computers that we were authorized to access. And so we've gotten advice from lawyers about this. And Ira is just as exactly the same position as I am, so I don't think either of us are going to get prosecuted.
No,
but I think it's just something that's useful for them to keep alive, so that there's a bit of speculation over it, and that distracts from the story.
Can we talk about money here for a moment? You had to beg, borrow, and steal to get some money for having done this.
Well, I prefer to think of it as busking. So it's basically a model where I do the story and then I just say, hey, can you give me some money for this?
Well, it was quite a lot of money, wasn't it? It was more than five grand, really? Something like that,
so right now, this morning, it was sitting at around at 5,700.
Okay, so is Ira Bailey going to get any of that?
I want to give him some of it, but we hadn't actually discussed it. So keep in mind that when I first started doing the story, none of this, we didn't know whether we were going to get any money. And the idea of just going, hey, give me some money, hasn't really been tested very well before. So there was no expectation that there's money.
It beats the hell out of the freelance rate of 40 cents a word.
Absolutely.
You've done extremely well out of it.
But you probably can't do it twice, though, can you? What do you think?
Well, no, it's interesting.
This is the second time.
Yeah, no, but Bernard Hickey, with who's leaving Interest.co, is talking about setting up exactly that kind of model, isn't he, Keith?
So we have a slightly different philosophical outlook on why people pay and how people pay. So my idea was that people are not paying for a product that they're getting. People are not paying to read it. People are paying because they think it's important that the stuff is done. And so you can't stop them. You can't have a paywall. You can't have any kind of system that turns it into a product. You just have to stand out there and go, hey, if you think this is important, you should give me some money. And it's worked for me so far.
I wonder if the mainstream media should be paying bloggers when they get good stories from the bloggers. I mean, I've been in this situation myself where I've written numerous blogs and suddenly they're big stories in the newspapers. Maybe they should be paying me, maybe they should be paying you.
Well, if you think about it, if mainstream media isn't prepared to pay, say, $2,000 for a story, then what incentive do they have to pay bloggers? And really, I think the kind of controls and the kinds of restrictions that you have when you have to publish something in mainstream media is not worth the money that they're giving.
Keith,
It's an interesting scenario, though, isn't it? Because bloggers, you know, we need people like you out there scurrying around getting stories like this. And when I say we, I mean mainstream media. At the same time, you need the mainstream media to pick up on these stories, really, to broadcast them or print them across the nation, don't you?
Well, it's nice to have the amplifying effect of the mainstream media, but I think the real worry, the real thing that mainstream media should be worrying about is the credibility slip, that if we are seen to be the ones breaking stories, then what are they for? Are they just there to get eyeballs? Are they just there to...
But are you not just another part of the media, though? You know, we don't raise our eyebrows if the Herald breaks a story, and I'm sure they don't do the same with us. It's just another media outlet that's breaking a story.
True, but I think, and this is one of the reasons why I guess I've been calling myself a blogger instead of a journalist for this story. It's this idea that we are slightly different. We don't follow the same set of rules. We don't have the same kinds of incentives. For example, we're not well, for me particularly, I don't make my money out of getting eyeballs for my stories, and that really changes the kind of stories that I do.
Well,
and how I do them.
we don't have to follow the same rules. As bloggers, we don't have to be fair, we don't have to be balanced, we don't even have to tell the truth, we certainly don't have to be right. But if you're a journalist, you have to do all of those things.
Well, really? I think there is...
Yes, Keith, yes.
In theory.
I mean, we suffer the same credibility hits as anyone else does when we report things that are untrue. Sure, we don't have, say, press council complaints or anything, but
that's probably
in general,
going to come.
the ideas...
That will come, surely. They will start legislating for that, won't they?
But are we really scared of press council complaints, or rather, is it? It's the credibility. It's the credibility that matters.
You
more
shouldn't
than
be
any
scared of
kind
the press council because it is a toothless watchdog. So why would you be scared of it?
Well, there you go.
I'm not, but I guess the idea is that our reputation for fairness and for getting things right is really important to us. So, in a sense, the environment is the same and the motivations are the same.
There was a lot of dialogue on Twitter, people getting very prickly about you being referred to as a blogger and not a journalist, but I know you yourself referred to yourself as a blogger. It's a difficult beast, isn't it? Not all bloggers are journalists, not all journalists are bloggers.
Yeah, but I think it's problematic when we do something right, we get called journalists. When we screw up, then we get called bloggers. And I think a lot of media experiments happen this way. When we do well, we kind of get co-opted by the media. And I don't want to do that this time. OK, we have to leave it there, Keith. When's the next big story coming? You're out there ferreting around? Yes, I am.
Excellent. We shall wait with bated breath. All right, Keith, and congratulations. You did have the story of the week. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Now,
we're going to look at another interesting scenario we had this week, the campaign we've been seeing a lot about recently.
We agree that tobacco is harmful. We disagree with plain packaging because it prevents companies using the legal branded they've created and invested in.
Now, these ads are authorised by British American Tobacco, who are lobbying against plain packaging cigarettes. Let's discuss this because it's an interesting scenario where you see within the media, essentially industry is lobbying public opinion.
I don't think it's going to make any difference. I think with the tobacco ads, if you're a smoker, you'll approve of those ads, but it won't make any difference. If you're a non-smoker, you'll probably disapprove of them, but that won't make any difference either. So I think they're wasting their money. But they're wasting an awful lot of money. And the tobacco industry worldwide is the most dishonest, the most unscrupulous, the most immoral industry anywhere in the world, with the possible exception of the oil industry. So people's views on it are very strong. This won't change anything. And the ads themselves, in my view, are dishonest anyway.
Ralston, you are a tobacco ambassador in a way.
No, true. I don't think as a campaign it's actually working for them at all. I think the concept that they're trying to sell is far too blurry. Their efforts on social media, BAT, are backfiring on them as well, as they have Twitter and things like that. Overall, the concept is too difficult to sell the way they're trying to do it there, and it's just not working.
And here's an example of the damage that smoking can do to a person. You see, so I mean, he's a very good argument actually here. Whereas I, a non-smoker, Yeah, you see. But really, I mean, you look at the ads and they say, we admit that smoking is harmful. What an understatement that is, you know. This particular ad we've just shown, you've got this lovely music playing, which sort of suggests something classical and nice about smoking. Probably very good to play in the cancer ward once you've got throat cancer or lung cancer, whatever it might be. But they're an appalling industry, and I'm quite pleased they're wasting their money.
OK, let's also talk about what's been happening in the States at the moment too, because we've had the presidential debate there, the second one, Obama versus Romney. These debates are, it's fair to say, slightly different to the debates that we have here, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've chaired several New Zealand leaders' debates, and the American ones I find are actually far more intelligent. Far more detailed and actually far more polite. The second debate we saw with Obama and Romney just last week there was probably the most aggressive I've seen in an American debate.
I think we've got actually a clip of it here.
Flies to Las Vegas for political fundraiser.
And the suggestion that anybody in my team would play politics or mislead when we've lost 4 of our own, Governor, is offensive.
Have you looked at your pension?
I've got to say.
Mr. President, have you looked at your pension?
You know, I don't look at my pension. It's not as big as yours, so it doesn't take as long.
Let me give you some...
Isn't
I have to
interesting how
say,
he looks away from him? Did you notice that? Looks away, smiles, doesn't look at Romney while he's speaking.
It's good
What do you
television, though,
reckon
isn't it?
about
Because
that?
it's
Do you think that's a good
combative.
tactic?
It's a tactic that incumbents tend to use. You know, they'll try and ignore the challenger because they are so much of a lesser beast. The danger there is you end up looking arrogant and you end up looking distanced from not only your opponent, but also from the public that are watching. And that's what happened to Obama in that first debate.
Well, can I come back to your question about the difference between the New Zealand sort of pre-election debates and the ones in the United States? You go back to 2005, I think you were head of News and Current Affairs then. That was a debate between Don Brash and Helen Clark.
Yep.
And that was just chaos there, because you had everyone. You had one group of supporters of Helen Clark, one group of supporters of Don Brash there, and it was extraordinary. Everyone is just shouting. No one can hear anything. There's abuse everywhere. This, I agree with Bill, this is much more civilised.
I think they're told actually by the moderators at the start there'll be no heckling whatsoever, otherwise you're out. But it did make for good television, didn't it?
It did.
US
It was a
president.
great
Well, no,
TV.
I think it made for very bad television, actually.
Did you?
So we'll agree to differ.
Huge
Right.
audience.
OK, we'll leave it there. That brings us to the
Is
end of
that
our
good
programme
television?
for this
Huge
week.
audience?
Goodness me, I'm disagreeing with
Yes.
Dr. Edwards. Remember, all of our stories and interviews can be seen on our website, frontpage.co.nz. That's frontpage.co.nz.